Hello, today is Thursday, the 27th of October, 2011, and I want to go over technical analysis really on a big picture kind of view within this video, as oftentimes I have heard people state that technical analysis, well, when you're looking about the silver market, it just doesn't work. And even in a manipulated market, come on, you can't use technical analysis, can you? Well, let's first look at what technical analysis means. I could just go to the definition and tell you what the definition of both words technical and analysis is, but I don't even think I need to. Because what does technical really mean? What does technical really mean? Well, here's an example of being technical. Technically speaking, this candle, this most recent one, has technically been at highs not seen at all during the duration of this chart. That's technical. Also on a technical level is that we have a 3 candle downtrend, meaning this candle's low is lower than this one, the red one that is, and this big one or the most current one, its low is also lower than the previous one. That's technically true. Technically speaking, when you have these bands either going up together or down together, the trend is clarified for you. Both going down together is a downtrend. Both going up together is an uptrend. But technically speaking, this line has made a very small pullback. So what's the analysis within the situation? Well, the analysis within the pullback is because of volatility is engaging a little higher. If the market continues to go higher, it's going to look just like it did back in here. Little pullback and then it goes higher. This little move stated volatility moving up just a little bit. But let's move further within technical analysis and let's move straight to the numbers because volatility is this column in here. This is 4%. Therefore, the moves from the highest point within the 6-hour period, which is 34.48, and the lowest point of 33.15 works out to that of 4%. Now let's look back within the last few days and see what 4% gave us in return. Well, the previous one we had the market close at 32.57. The next period it went up to 33.19, so that was gain of over 1%. The last time we had 4% before that was the market at 31.22, which gained a half of a percent, going to 31.37 the next period. So 2 winners in a row, basically. We have 4% here, and 30.30 goes up to 30.56. Well, 3% winners in a row. Or 3 winners in a row. 31.61, we have 4% again, and it closes at 32.04. There's 4 consecutive wins in a row. Let's find the next 4% move. There's 5%. And it still went higher as well. It went from 31.15 to 31.67. There's 4% here. 31.68 goes to 31.94. Even the 4% then went from 31.26 to 31.68. You have some 5 and 6% moves, but they're really not 4%. And that was back in the day when the market was really at its lower end, as it was at 28. There's a 4% one here, 29.91, moving up to 30.71. 4% here. Well, there's the last loss, 31.88 to 31.19. Okay. So the analysis then tells us that since really the end of September or the last month, whenever we have a 4% move in a 6-hour period, the next period is always going higher. Now I can look at this and state, well, that's almost the same as saying when a football team like the Chicago Bears are coming off of a 2-touchdown loss, they are 12-0 against the spread. You know what? I got to make sense of a trend like that for me to give it some clarification. Now, the only clarification that I have is that the volatile moves that are bringing upward moves, which are usually lower than the smaller ones, is giving us indication that when we have those moves, that's I don't know what noun or verb to use, but that's the spark needed for the market to continue higher. Okay, now let's go over the whole big picture. So I've spent the first 5 minutes talking about that. This is going to be yet another 10 minutes or so anyway, if not 15. So it's going to take some time. Let's go over technical analysis here on the big picture. Technically, the recent silver plunges were aggressive, devious moves that mainly involved margin requirements. Now, when I wrote this out, I did not use a spell check of any sort, so if there's any little mistake here and there, whatever. Technically, margin is that of borrowing money. Technically, borrowing money requires interest payments. Technically, only central banks are allowed to issue currency. Technically, interest variables do not exist and never exist. Technically, the accounting books state the interest to be money. Technically, we could call this debt. And technically, debt is 100% guaranteed. Technically, the sunrise in the east is 100% guaranteed. Currently, or technically, we as in macro consciousness, the collective core, are not able to change the sunrise status. Technically, we macro consciousness are able to change the debt status. Able to. Doesn't mean you will, but you're able to. Technically, protesters broke artificial laws on many degrees. And technically, protesters have not broken any natural laws. And I'm going to be getting a lot into this. Artificial law versus natural law. Natural law are the universal laws that are available within the internet and many other science books. Artificial laws are the laws that we have created. Therefore, you could have somebody make a law that if you happen to get into your car, then you are subject to imprisonment for exactly 22 hours and 9 seconds. Now, that doesn't make sense, but that's what would be made, and that would be artificial. Some artificial laws are beneficial, some are not. Technically, federal governments have broken artificial laws by having fiat standard. Technically, the artificial law is that only gold and money can be used. Gold and money, let's fix this. Gold and silver can only be used as money. Technically, artificial laws are those rules that humans make that can be broken. Technically, natural laws are those set up by the universe. Analysis from universal law is they are designed so they cannot be broken, and thus, as humans, we are forced, enslaved, if you will, into that of natural law. Analysis from artificial laws that can be broken states we as co-creators are allowed to make any laws that we choose as long as they don't break natural law, which is impossible anyway. And therefore, by writing words onto paper, metal, rocks, computers, we can make any artificial law that we want. Analysis from gold and silver, only to be money, shows this broke free shortly after the Federal Reserve came into existence. Over the last 80 years or so, enough time, generations has passed where the seniors, veterans of today's world cannot be experienced with gold and silver as money because we are now in the stages where those people were kids during the war and most of them post-war as the 40s, 50s brought in the stages or not caring about gold and silver. So when these gentlemen are now retiring, they don't see gold and silver as money like those people born in 1881. Analysis from federal governments with fiat money shows that they have violated the Constitution and therefore they just let it be done, which is really what fiat means in Latin, and fiat is our currency based on backed by nothing. And technically, because these people made artificial laws for themselves, they did not follow. This shows the integrity of their actions to be not so great. This can be similar to Mike saying to Joe that he will pick him up at 10 p.m. on the corner of 1st and 2nd. If Mike does not pick him up at that time and does something else, then Mike broke an artificial law that he created, which is similar to the one broken by world governments. Analysis from the government's break in this artificial law, which is pretty much a promise, has resulted in many natural outcomes, and one of them is the Occupy Wall Street. Natural law seems, and this is an educated guess, that we are currently in the time where these critical changes are to occur. Thus, if that's natural law, there's nothing we can do to stop it, and it's an educated guess. Analysis from protesters breaking artificial laws is based on many that have been given that natural law makes it almost, if not impossible, for them not to. That is, break artificial laws. Most humans break laws without even knowing them, as they are not aware of those artificial laws. If throwing rocks at someone is that of breaking artificial law, then how is not spraying tear gas at people considered to be that of lawful? Analysis shows that tear gas and rocks are two different things, which can state it might be because of this. Of course, logic states that tear gas would be considered more harmful than rocks. Analysis continues to state that the artificial laws state that employees of police departments are granted many harmful acts that everyday civilians are not. Analysis shows when civilians break artificial laws, they are endured with artificial laws that have been created, which includes acts like tear gas and kidnapping, which is another word for arresting or imprisoning someone, where when federal banks break artificial laws like fiat money, they are safe because there are no artificial laws in place for something to be done about it. Yeah, we have laws stating, well, if you do this, like if you create money, there's another. I'm going to talk about that within this, but then there's laws against it. But I don't know what the penalty is within the law book for breaking the Constitution. Analysis to changing this debt status shows that radical changes are needed to do such an event. One method is to make an artificial law to do something about it. If the 99% decide to make it illegal to have a bank account to the penalty of being forced to live in Antarctica, there would be many humans in fear and thus they would close their account. Now this is meant to be a joke because humans are in fear of governments and thus when they are forced into something, they oftentimes will comply because of fear. I don't know what is required for this to occur and the debt system to be changed. My guess, educated analysis seems probable on a massive level that it is 100% guaranteed by natural law to occur, and thus is the case. There is nothing we can do about it to stop it from happening. My only guess to how this, the end of the debt system, would happen would occur with one of the steps being many civilians ignoring and removing themselves from the bank. Analysis thus shows what we can break artificial laws very easy and not break natural laws. Therefore, how would the human race decide to have the sun rise in a different location? And instead of having it rise in the east, we choose that we want it to rise in the southwest. Humans can make any laws they want and have Congress pass them, but even if they get the votes to do so, it seems obvious that the sun will keep rising in the east like it has done for the last many millions of years. Maybe at some point this will change. And I have a strange feeling that by this time next decade, the sun will rise in the west and set in the east. That's a different story. However, analysis for something radical to take place would require the Earth to do a complete 180 move on the opposite direction or an opposite spin, a counterclockwise spin from clockwise, something like that. But no vote can make this happen, and I am only saying I am guessing this will happen and not an educated guess for the opposite spin. But we'll wait and see. Analysis for why the sunrise is guaranteed to rise in the east every day is based upon how the Earth rotates around the sun. Further analysis states that every single day that I, you, and everyone else have lived on this planet, the sun has risen in the east. So when you have a trend that strong, you keep it going. Analysis for why the debt is guaranteed is based on math. This does not have a variable factor like winning lotteries where there is at least a micro shot for the case to be in play. Variable factors state that there might be a 99.9999921% chance of one event happening and not much shot of the other event. No, this one is 100% debt and 0% of not having it using an infinite amount of decimal points. Meaning in a trillion to the power of a trillion to the power of a trillion, what the biggest number you can think. In that many situations, there will be not one time where debt will not be in play, as long as, of course, there's interest. Analysis to get these figures is to create a simulation on a small amount of participants. And one central bank and up to 2 or 3 regular banks, you will see from this that all simulations will have major debt problems as currency is exchange and barter, as well as borrowed repaid, which will have many civilians, businesses, and banks getting killed because of the simple math of multiplying or multiplication. Analysis for banks stating interest earned to be money is because of a term called accounts receivable. They consider this to be an asset as good as cash that they expect to always get, which they always do not. Always show that the variables of interest owed never analysis shows that the variable of interest earned owed never exist has these payments from other existing variables, currency, and thus the non-existing variables are in the field of debt. Non-existing variables is interest because if you borrow $100 off me and then I ask for 120 back, then that 20 never exists, basically, is what I mean by non-existing variables. Analysis of bankers only being allowed to create currency shows that this artificial law to be accepted and compliant upon the people mainly because they don't know the extent to how money is created. Therefore, the net result is that of a monopoly on the creation of currency, as if one creates similar pieces of paper, they are subject to serious kidnapping through the artificial laws created by a few individuals no longer alive on this planet and maintained through other few individuals. Basically, what I'm saying is all of these big laws and stuff pretty much occurred before 1930, and thus no one is really here for it, and the ones that are retired, basically. Analysis of borrowing money having interest is in that of the bankers choose to have this practically 99.9% of the time, and if they had chosen to lend money without a single amount of interest, then there would be no such thing as macro debt, as interest is the prime reason for debt. Analysis for people borrowing money on margin has several cases that has run this world with major debt problems that are artificial. For any new artificial rules can fix these problems overnight if we, macro consciousness, choose to do so. Of course, we don't choose to do so. Analysis for the margin moves in the silver market causing this plunge shows us that the price levels, which are artificial, move significantly lower, and it seems that the market creators have rigged this game enough so they can pretty much do what they want. Artificial laws can never stay intact an entire duration of time, and therefore within how I perceive natural laws to be played out as we live in end times, which is end of evil, corruption, lies, deception, etc., 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 that the end will come to this evil and catastrophic game of currency, which will die. I hope this helps others understand about the target line for the price of silver and thus the reasons why it's important asset class to be that of div 0, which means you can't divide a number by 0, thus referring to a currency that really has absolutely no value whatsoever. Not stating that silver is the best investment. I think the odds favor it to be amazing, but to protect yourself against any death of currency. Currency having no value means that you are not able to get an answer, and thus, technically, in a situation where currency is no longer existent, then we could be in a situation through analysis to note silver will have I just said that and I wrote it down. Will have scientific value, whereas currency will not. Between the choice of these two items, why would one want to hang on to something that is useless? Thank you for watching this close to 20-minute video, and have yourself a magnificent day. Bye-bye.